Hi, it's Ivaldi Sako. Welcome to the show. Today we'll talk about whatever you saw in the title of this podcast as usual, and more precisely, how to be successful long term, be very successful long term, and remain successful, keep achieving great things. How to be creative, even if you're not usually creative, just like me, and help you get ideas that helps you achieve your goals. Get creative ideas that helps you achieve your goals. And we'll also talk at the end mostly about flow, the state of flow, this powerful state that makes you become capable of achieving the impossible, which I'm not making this up. I'm taking this from this book, The Art of Impossible by Steven Kotler. We'll go over it. I'll read to you a little bit, some parts of it that I thought were extremely useful, and some notes that I've taken on that. We'll also talk mostly about flow in the next episode, because this one is going to be more about creativity, how to develop it easily, and how to be successful long-term thanks to it. But flow is a requirement as well to do the impossible, as Steven Kotler says in this book. And so we'll dedicate an episode on that in the next one. Like the next episode is going to be, I hope so, on that. So if you want to know about this as well, I suggest you don't waste a split second and just click subscribe right now to not forget and miss the next episode. And we got a fee here on this show. By the way, if you're new here, my name is Ivaldi Sako. I'm an entrepreneur on a mission to try to educate the world, right? Inspire, motivate, and educate the world. And I help experts, coaches, business coaches make it easy, convenient, and extremely profitable for experts to educate everyone. That's what this is my mission, right? And so here, I try to educate you while, just document my journey. I help you not have to read books like this. I suggest you still read them, but I tell you the most applicable things and useful things immediately, while you just have to listen to me and be able to apply them immediately and not have to read like 2-3 pages that can be summarized in 1 or 2 words. Now, of course, I still suggest you read books because it's like pretty cool and pretty useful to have the full context, but sometimes you don't have the time. It's most like the most useful stuff I'll tell you about here. And so if you want to become successful and free, if you want to get to the next level of success, or just have a better life overall, I suggest you subscribe on this podcast because that's all I talk about. And by the way, if you see me a little bit struggling in English, that's because it's not my native language. So please be aware of that. And I think you still can understand me pretty well. So we'll be starting up. I don't know if you can hear me very well, but I think it's good. I'll be drinking a lot of water because it's still very hot. Again, forgive me before I just tell you 10,000 times to forgive me. Anyway, I think we'll start. So, first of all, how to make your biology. So this is like a book about biology. It's not something that tells you, okay, there are some people that can do it and you can't because you don't have the biology. It's the contrary. You can because you have the biology. You have the DNA to do the impossible, and it's just like, okay, you take the parts that allow you to do the impossible, that allow you to become really creative, and just implement them. And when you do implement them, you can do the impossible. You can become very creative, which actually, like, I felt this working just while reading them. I didn't even try to apply the things that I already became more creative just by becoming aware of those things that I'm going to be talking to you about. So, there are 7 steps. 7 steps to become more creative and to pretty much hack creativity. But first of all, let's start at the beginning. What's really creativity? It's basically summarized. It's divergent thinking. So, divergent thinking is when you can answer a question with multiple answers, come up with multiple solutions to a problem. So for example, a good test, as he tells you, is to ask yourself, what are the different use cases of a pen? That's a question that is used to test your creativity. And so if you are very creative, you'll come up with a variety of different answers, of solutions, of, okay, what are the use cases of a pen? It's not only to write, right? If you're not very creative, usually, like me, you'll say, okay, you can write with it, you can, I'm not that creative immediately, right? You got to put yourself in a state. Now, a pen could be, for example, if I'm becoming a little bit more creative, could be used as a weapon to be able to fight in, worst case scenarios. You can use it as a gift to use the psychological lever of reciprocity, right? So you give the pen to someone, even if it's a small thing, it still works. You can use it to help someone else have, just in case, be useful to people. And that's pretty much all of what my creativity can do at this moment. And divergent thinking, so the ability to come up with multiple answers, creative answers to a certain problem, has 4 different characteristics. So first one, fluency, the ability to produce a great number of ideas in a short time frame. Second, flexibility, the ability to approach a problem from multiple angles. Third, originality, the ability to produce novel ideas. 4, elaboration, the ability to organize those ideas and execute on them. So those are the 4 characteristics which were a major breakthrough back in the time. I don't remember really the time, back in the 1960s, something like this, maybe before. Anyway, so in the book, he tells you about the brain, where creativity is. So if you want to know more about this, I suggest you read the book, but I won't go over that because it's too complicated for my English level, I guess, to just explain this very well. So I won't bother go into it. And plus, it's not very applicable. It's mostly theory. He will talk about here about the applicable stuff. So, he tells you a lot about different stuff, and then he tells you about hacking creativity. I don't know if I just messed up the focus or not. No idea. I'm using the front camera. It's not even great quality because my phone is going to is going to overheat again. So I'll take my notes. Step 1, to become very creative. And this is there's 2 parts of how to become more creative. There's the short-term part of becoming creative, almost daily. The daily creativity, you want to increase your daily creativity. And then there's the broader, long haul creativity, which is actually the name of the chapter, I think. So now we're talking about daily creativity, how to nurture it. Step 1, be in a good mood. So to be in a good mood, you need to sleep well and do basically all the stuff that I talked about in the last 2 podcasts, because I talked about the first part of this book, The Art of Impossible. The last 2 podcasts, last 2 episodes, I believe number 28 and 29, were about the beginning of this book. And the beginning of this book was about, first of all, motivation. I don't even remember really, because I've just went through so many things. It's the 4 components of how to do the impossible in general, right? And one of the components is motivation, I believe, learning, and creativity, and then flow. Those are the 4 things. So right now it's the 3rd one on creativity, and the next one will be on flow. And so basically, I'm just going to summarize this book, basically, because it's really good, for the least. Step 2. So step 1 is to be in a good mood. I'm going to do this correctly. It's just I'm pretty dehydrated because of the hotness in this car. Step 1 is to be in a good mood, and so it's basically sleep well, practice gratitude, mindfulness, and exercise. I won't go too much in details. You can go back and watch the last episodes. Step 2 is to broaden your horizon, just like I'm doing right now, basically. But like, you should not have walls. Broaden your horizon is like literally look into the distance, just like a model would. Like, you see that people make those looks into the distance. This makes you more creative. This makes you like looking far away from where you are makes you more creative, because it allows your brain to see like there's no limits, there's no frontier, there's no like contraction. It's like expansion. Just like when you're in a room with low ceilings, you're less creative than when you're in a room with high ceilings. And so try to put yourself in nature, basically, to broaden your horizons. This is step 2. Step 3 is to create for yourself a noun time and a no one time. What does it mean? This means that you create yourself a block of time where you don't keep track of time, you are not limited, or have any urgency or deadlines to meet. It's just times where you're alone, undistracted, and could just spend 2 hours writing 2 sentences, and it would be worth it. It would be okay. It would not be a problem. It would be like, even if you're not productive during this time, it's not a problem. It's just like to remove the urgency and the anxiety about producing something, the feeling of, okay, I need to do something right now, because this creates cortisol, and this prevents creativity from happening, because you need to be in a relaxed state, in a good mood, in a relaxed state to be able to do this. So create for yourself a noun time. This is how he calls it. It's basically like a time where like uninterrupted, focused, alone, in a room, high ceilings, hopefully. You get what I mean. Step 4, drink alcohol. Now, I would never suggest that. Never. But the author says that, it's pretty useful. It makes you more creative, but you could do something else instead of drinking alcohol. You could just watch a funny video. This is like, the goal is to put yourself in a playful mood, because a playful mood, it lowers the stakes and makes you more creative by being in a better mood as well. And you can also start with the unfamiliar. When, for example, you need to write something, you need to write a paper. It's often about writing, right? Creativity is often like, you need to write something to come up with ideas. It's always like externalization is always a part of the process. And to come up with better ideas, you just can start with something that is unfamiliar, something that is weird, a weird story, a weird context, something weird that you're not used to talk about. This, when you improvise on that, when you start with this and you just see where this gets you, it makes you more creative. Step 5 is to think inside the box. Now, I think to make you even more creative, there's a technique where you can be more precise. Like actors, when they take improv classes. Now, I don't have the example just in front of me. I don't know if I'm going to touch on that later, but no, I don't think so. Oh, there's a beautiful plane flying just above me. I'm going to buy myself like, I want the exact same plane. Anyway, so let's forget about the actor part, but like they get precise about the problem when they go into improv classes. Instead of saying, "What's your problem?" they must say, "What? You're still upset about yesterday I flushed down the toilet your bracelet, right?" Like some precise thing. What? Be precise about the things instead of general, because this makes you more creative and this helps you improvise. Step 5, think inside the box. Now, we talked about not having limits of time and constraint on yourself, right? But your work should have constraints. Like constraints create creativity. Limits, like, allow creativity. And you have to having a start helps you, first of all, get momentum, but also helps you know where you're working, have limits, because when you're too general, you could do just everything, right? You have a blank page, it's way too hard to write on it. So you want to have a start. Don't start on a blank page. This is what the author says. Start with some words and be precise, right? This is where I touch on it. So instead of saying, what's your problem? You say, don't tell me you're still pissed off about the time I dropped your necklace down the toilet, right? Step 6, load the pattern recognition. Load the pattern recognition. You must invest information about a wide variety of subjects in your pattern recognition. So just digest information that are not about your typical, your focal point, your area of expertise. Now, try to read 20 to 50 pages daily about something far outside your specialty, because this makes you get some knowledge and makes you see, okay, some connections between the different areas, the different fields, and it allows pattern recognition. And this makes you more creative. This gets you ideas. Step 7, use the MacGyver method. So it's a 3-step method. 1, problem identification. Write down your problem on paper. Important, non-negotiable. Write it down on paper, be precise. Step 2, incubation. Do something like taking a walk, without distractions, without listening to this podcast, for example. Take a walk without doing anything else, but like taking the walk to let your mind be completely off, and start running on autopilot and coming up with creativity, coming up with ideas, with letting your recognition pattern start working, right? So it's an incubation. You can have this during a shower, during a long walk in nature. This works great. And in the beginning, you can also just sleep on it. It works well because you have more time. And so sleeping on a problem, this is the incubation period. After you've wrote down the problem, of course. And then you free writing. Start writing about whatever you want, even copying passages from a book or a song. After a few minutes of writing it, ideas and solutions start popping up in your head, and that problem is you're going to solve most easily this problem. And the author used this phrase. So when he starts writing, so for his free writing, he writes, I'm now typing to write the answer to my problem, but I don't really know what it's about. Right? I don't really know what I could do as a solution. Something like this, right? And this allows you to just get into motion, get into the momentum of writing whatever it is, right? And then you start getting some inspiration, right? You continue writing whatever happens in your mind to come, and after that, ideas start coming up, and you start writing things that are actually useful. I'm burning hot. Sorry. And so that's the 3 steps of the MacGyver method, and those are the. Let me breathe a little bit. There's no oxygen. I don't have any oxygen. Sorry, guys. I'm really not performing great right now. I'm sweating like crazy. Anyway, so those were the 7 steps to be more creative daily. Now, becoming creative on the long term, because you need creativity to be successful long term, to come up with new ideas, because ideas die off. Any system, actually, anything that you're doing right now will not work indefinitely. The results will, as soon as you have something working great for you, for your business, or for anything, it starts decreasing. The results start decreasing. There's inflation, and so you want to grow, to be able to keep growing in new ideas, something like better things. And so you need to keep constantly, over the years, reinvent yourself. There are artists that are one-hit wonders, right? And there are some that are continually growing, continually having great hits, right? This is because they apply those steps. How to be creative on the long haul. 9 steps. Learn everything that isn't your specialty, but surrounds your craft. Because you'll need for example, if you're an artist, you'll need to market your art. You need a lot of multiple things. So don't just focus on your like over specializing. You need to know what's around you, right? Even if you want to delegate it, you're not going to be able to delegate it properly if you don't know anything about it. So you need to know a lot of things. Number 2, the Ferris 4. So this is from Tim Ferriss, and it's 4 steps. In this second step, there's like 4 little steps, right? 1, daily exercise. We talked about it, 1 hour a day. 2, keep a maker schedule. This is what we talked about, a non-time, right? Some time where you're just not distracted, unbothered, complete focus on one thing. Number 3, take long walks, right? To have the incubation period. Number 4, ask better questions. And this is like asking questions to experts, and when those experts tell you, wait, you're asking the wrong question. The better question is, and then they start telling you because they tell you about the assumptions that you have, and sometimes you can't see it. And it's good to have feedback when you do this. Number 3, forgive me, momentum. Very important. Stop while you have the inspiration. You need to stop. You need to pause and let it for tomorrow, right? You have the inspiration, you're getting great ideas, you have momentum, stop it. Because then you keep the momentum for tomorrow. And tomorrow you don't waste time, you don't waste, okay, what I was thinking about, you still have the emotion, you still know what you wanted to talk about. And for that, actually, it's very useful to use the 4 tools, the 4 military tools, I believe, of David Goggins. I believe this is what I titled the podcast. In it, I talked to you about the after action report, I think, or maybe the checkpoint strategy, yes. And so this tells you, okay, where are you right now? And so you need to just read a couple sentences and you can get back to your work very efficiently and not lose your momentum, right? So stop in the inspiration. 4, sobbing, shouting, and punching hard objects. So this is basically like telling you that you will have the big frustration. You will have like, this is not working. I'm not getting anywhere, right? It's big frustration on the moment. And what Stephen Kotler says is like, it's normal. Don't worry about it. Just get used to it. Because this is a sign that you're growing, a sign that you're in the right direction. And by the way, he tells you that you need to change your relationship with this frustration. Imagine a character in a movie, a very charismatic character in a movie. When he gets frustrated, like if he's really good, if he's really like charismatic and confident, he doesn't really care. He doesn't really get that frustrated. He's like frustrated, but like he likes it. He enjoys it. He chases it. Okay, and he's curious about it. If you are like this, you'll start developing a positive reinforcement toward those frustrations, and those frustrations are the right direction toward making progress. Number 5, then there's like Ken Robinson, I believe. He says that there's also, aside from this frustration that makes you want to hit the ground, there's a like long-term, like small bit frustrations every day on the journey. And this is basically like, it's an itchy dissatisfaction. I'm going to take like where the pot was, because this was very useful. So he tells you, I got immediately on it. It's a constant itchy dissatisfaction. A deep sense of what if, and can I make it better? And something like this, right? To illustrate the difference, Sir Ken Robinson tells Stephen Kotler, the author of this book, a story about the time that he got to meet George Lucas. Apparently, Robinson popped the question, "Hey George, why do you keep remaking all those Star Wars movies?" Lucas said, "In this particular universe, I'm God, and God isn't satisfied. So it's like a itchy, constant like desire to improve. It's like, it's not great enough, right? Now, I think there's a correlation with perfection, but it's not. I think this is what it is. I think it is like trying to perfect it, right? But still being able to put out something, right? It's not something that's debilitating you. 6, everybody's got a job to do. So it tells you that sometimes you have a team, sometimes you have people that you work with, and those people need to work. If not, they will feel useless. So sometimes you're going to create a work, you're going to have great ideas, and because they're so great, they're almost perfect, people are going to not have any job to do. For example, he says like his editors, he lets a part in his book for editors because sometimes he's done like a really good work and he doesn't want them to touch it. He knows this is perfect. And so in order for them to feel still useful, well, he makes like, he lets a little bit of a part that is not very great, that is pretty like messy. And so they work on that, they feel useful, and he's able to keep his perfect work. This is what he tells you when he's saying everybody's got a job to do. So be aware of this. People need to feel useful. 7, someone's always chasing you. This is basically like the drive, the competition, like to keep your motivation, to keep trying to get better ideas, new ideas. You need to keep your motivation, and competition is like, okay, he's like, there's like, I think it's Burke Sharpless. I don't know him, but like, this is who he talks about. He says that Stephen Kotler says that Burke Sharpless says, someone's always chasing me. I try to remember that. For every movie of mine that gets made, there are thousands that don't. And so keep in mind, okay, I'm being chased right now. Someone's behind me, so you keep your motivation, right? Now, this doesn't turn into anxiety because anxiety reduces creativity. Number 8, creativity is a byproduct. So don't try to chase creativity in itself. This is important because if you chase creativity, you won't get it. What you need to chase is the work. You don't even like, you just like to go and sit down and you work. That's it. The goal is to work, and with the work, with the hard work, with the boring work, the creativity comes. It's a byproduct. It's not the goal. Like, it's not the thing that you're creating in and of itself. It's something that comes because you're doing the work with consistency. Number 9, always keep your word to yourself, especially to yourself. Because when you're becoming creative, especially like creative people that are, in nature, naturally like this, they tend to have a lot of ideas. And because they have a lot of ideas, they tend to be all over the place and not follow the words because, well, they had too many ideas. They decided to do, okay, I'm going to take action on this idea, but oh my God, this idea is so great. I'm going to do this. Once you decided to go after one thing, once you have decided to chase one goal, keep on that goal. Keep your word to yourself and keep your word to others as well, so you're reliable. Because a lot of creative people struggle with this because people don't trust them because they always have great ideas and they don't follow on their words. And when people have creativity and they're reliable, they're very rare, and you produce more results. People trust you, and you can work in a great environment and you succeed. You achieve your goals. And so those were the 9 steps. After that, he tells you about the flow of creativity. Now, I don't know if it's in the reverse, that you can see it right now. On my screen, it's in the reverse. But like, in the flow of creativity, I think it was just like an introduction to the chapter of flow. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about flow right now, because this will serve you for the next episode. And it's one of the best thing ever. But before that, let me drink a little bit of water. So, here what I wrote down. This is like a great passage. It's called The Decoder Ring. And I'm going to read you the story because I can't tell it better. And I can't, like, this is like very useful, the whole story. So,
'Cause I can't, like, this is like very useful, the whole story. So,
The whole story. There's one story I've left out of our tale, which is how I managed to crack Flo's code in the first place. My decoder ring, Lyme disease. When I was 30 years old, I got Lyme disease and spent the better portion of 3 years in bed. For those unfamiliar, like me, Lyme is like the worst flu you've ever had, crossed with paranoid schizophrenia. Physically, I could barely walk. Across a room. Mentally, it was worse. The technical term for this is brain fog. My personal experience was totally bonkers. First, concentration vanished. It was like trying to think through cotton candy. Then the insomnia set in, the paranoia and the depression. My vision failed next. Long-term memory vanished. Short-term as well. And on and on. After 3 years of this, I was done. The doctors had to pull me off medicines because my stomach lining started bleeding out and there was nothing else they could do for me. I was functional less than an hour a day. Would I even get better? No one knew. I realized that all I would be from this point forward was a burden to my family and friends. I had a sizable collection of barbiturates in the bathroom, a couple of bottles of whiskey in the kitchen. Suicide became a very real option. It was no longer a question of if, it was a question of when. In the middle of the darkness, a friend showed up at my house and demanded that we go surfing. It was, of course, a ridiculous request. I could barely walk, let alone ride waves. But my friend was insistent. She wouldn't shut up, and she wouldn't leave. After hours of her badgering, I couldn't take any more. What the hell, I said. Let's go surfing. I can always kill myself tomorrow. My friend took me to the Sunset Beach in Los Angeles. I'm French. Remember that. My friend took me to Sunset Beach in Los Angeles, which may be the wimpiest beginner wave in the world. She gave me a board the size of a Cadillac, and the bigger the board, the easier it is to surf. The day was warm, the waves were small, and the tide was out. This meant we could wade to the lineup, which was a good thing since my friend had to all but carry me out there. Not 3 seconds after I got out there, a wave appeared on the horizon. Muscle memory took over. I spun my board around, paddled twice, and popped to my feet. I dropped into that wave, then dropped into another dimension. One that I did not even know existed. The first thing I noticed was that time had slowed to a crawl. My brain appeared to be working at normal speed, but the world was going by in freeze frame. My vision was panoramic. It felt like I could see out of the back of my head. Then I realized it didn't seem to have a head. Or not exactly. There was a body traveling on a surfboard across a wave, but the rider was missing. My sense of self had vanished. My consciousness had expanded outward. I had merged with the ocean, become one with the universe. Because, that happens. But that wasn't the oddest part. The oddest part was I felt great. For the first time in years, the pain was gone. My head was clear, my mind sharp, my suicidal tendencies a thing of the past. That wave felt so good that I caught 5 more that day. Afterward, I wasn't just destroyed, I was disassembled. My friend drove me home, carried me into bed, I didn't move for 2 weeks. People had to bring me food because I was too exhausted to walk the 50 feet to my kitchen to make a meal. Yet, on the 15th day, the first day that I could walk, I bummed a ride from a neighbor, went back to the beach, and did it again. And the same thing happened. A radically powerful altered state, of consciousness, out in the waves, a bedraggled, extinguished version of myself afterward, but something had changed, and I knew it. So I slept for another 10 days, went back to the ocean, and did it again. And again. And over the course of 8 months, when the only thing I was doing differently was surfing and having these quasi-mystical experiences while out in the waves, I got better, healthier, a lot healthier. I went from being functional 10% of the time to functional 80% of the time. None of it made a lick of sense. And this is what he tells you. This is all because of the state of flow. And I'm going to tell you exactly how flow works. And it starts with Nietzsche. In the 19th century, I believe, he discovered that there was 4 steps. And if you watch all the series on Steven Kotler's book, you will see some similarities. Step 1, find a passion and a purpose. Step 2, fortify passion with grit and goals. Step 3, amplify the results with learning and creativity. Step 4, use flow to turbo boost the whole process. And this is what flow is. It's a boost, a big boost. And so then he tells you about the flow psychology and how it takes part in 4 parts. In neuroanatomy, so where in the brain. Actually, I'm going to tell you exactly what it was on my notes. So it was like the source code. This is what he calls it, the source code, because this is where flow comes from. The neuroanatomy, so the parts of the brains, the different parts of the brains, prefrontal cortex, all those, like, right? And we use less part of our brain actually in flow. So we have the idea that we use 10% of our brain, and maybe in flow we use 100%, right? It's totally false. We use less part of our brain actually in flow. Then there's neuroelectricity, the beta, alpha, and theta, gamma waves, which the flow state is between theta and gamma, I believe. Oh, and yeah, in the next episode, we'll talk, because my phone is overheating right now. We'll tell you about the next step to trigger flow. And if you like this podcast, comment down below your thoughts, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next podcast. Take care. My phone is overheating. I don't know how to deal